Welcome back, everyone, to Train Tuesday. I'm your host, Jim Wiggin, and we're going to do what we always do on Train Tuesday. We're going to talk trains, and today we're going to talk about some ready to roll. Before we get started, let's go ahead and see who is joining us today. We have got Anessa, we've got Anthony, we've got Glenn, Frederick, rail fanning the CSX. We got Richard all the way from Colorado. We got Nicholas from Pittsburgh, PA. Lucas and Mike, Alco Man, and Joseph, Abel, Eric, they're all piling up. So I hope you guys get a good seat. We got some great stuff to talk about today. We're going to be talking about something a little bit smaller in the railroad industry and maybe something that'll help you get out of a rut. We'll talk about that a little bit more here in a bit. Also going to show you some really cool reviews that just came up on the new Genesis-9. Our friend over at Hybrid Hobby did a great review. It just went up, so we'll point you in the direction of that great review. And if you have not had a chance to see these Dash 9s yet, do yourself a favor and check these out. We're really happy with the way these came out. A lot of work and effort went into these, and this is a brand new model for us, and we're really happy with the way they turned out. And we're really, really happy to hear all of you guys out there that have these sharing your kind comments with us on Facebook and Instagram and other social media contacts. So let's see who else is out there today. Joseph, and he's from the Moreno Valley. Okay, great. Abel is coming in from Austin, Texas. Eric is coming in from Gray Summit, Missouri. And don't worry, Eric, we will show you something. Let's see, we got Steven. We got Ian, Christopher, David, Derek Glass is in the house. We got Dan, Eduardo, Daryl, Glenn, Matt, Chad, Tom, Kevin, Christian, and Ted, and Jay Cure, rail fanning the CSX. He's back again. Can we see some more Florida Central Railroad? Well, probably won't see any today, I can tell you that much, but who knows what happens in the future. Alex, Matthew, and Darren, Bobby, Joseph, thanks for coming on board today with us, guys. Really appreciate it. Like I said, we're going to talk a little bit about some ready to roll stuff today. And it's going to be kind of around a theme too. You'll probably pick up on it real quick. But before we get started, let's do what we always do. Let's go ahead and get into a comfortable position there at the workbench. Let's set the hobby knife down, grab the beverage of your choice, and sit back for Train Tuesday. Now, many of you out there that are watching this, maybe you're suffering kind of a rut. You don't have the big basement empire like your friend or the club has. You don't have a lot of space. Maybe you live in an apartment. Maybe you live in a small space and you don't have a lot of room for a layout. Well, it doesn't mean you can't have a layout. And what we're going to talk about today is perfect if you've been thinking about doing one of the switching layouts that has really become popular in the last few years. And if you don't believe me, just go on YouTube. When you're done watching this video, just put in switching layout in the search bar, and you'll come up with all kinds of stuff. And I'll give you guys some inspiration in a little bit. But first, we're going to talk about the SW1500s by Athearn, and these are in the ready to roll line. So starting out, we've got these Western Pacific locomotives. Now, a little bit about the SW1500. These came out in '66. EMD produced these in '66. And right away, these were working great for Class 1 railroads because not only could they be used in mainline freight if they wanted to, they could be used in branch line operations and, of course, industrial. And a lot of them found themselves on branch lines and industrial layouts. Now, EMD continued to produce these locomotives all the way until 1974, but they still soldiered on, of course. And some of them went to some short lines like Wisconsin Central. We'll talk a little bit about Wisconsin Central. And, the first run went to some of these railroads. This would be their last order. And speaking of which, Western Pacific, number 1501 right here. This is one of the last locomotive orders that Western Pacific would order. So this here is that familiar green and orange. This is a 1970s paint scheme. They spent most of their service years in the Bay Area. They primarily worked in downtown San Francisco and in Oakland. And once in a while, they'd occasionally sneak their way out of Central California locations. But for the most part, that's where they're at. We're offering these in 3 different road numbers, 1501, 1502, and 1503. And it's been a while since we've offered the SW1500. A little bit over 6 years, if my memory serves me correct. And one of the things to remember too is we're not just reissuing these. These have been updated. There's a lot of updates that we've put into these. This is the first time ever we've offered them not only with sound, but Tsunami 2 sound. The motor and the driveline has all been updated. It's a much more powerful motor. It's a quieter motor. We address some of those issues that some of you have brought to our attention in the past. And of course, not only is it going to have LED lights, but here's something we've never done with this locomotive. It actually has operating ground lights. Now that's pretty cool, especially for you guys that are doing operations and you're doing night operations. This is the perfect setup for you. So like I said, here we have Western Pacific, and we're talking 1970s. Now I've got some prototype pictures to show you along with a lot of these locomotives. I want to give a real quick shout out to Tony Cook over at Model Railroad News and White River Publications. He was nice enough to get me these pictures in time for the show. And, you know, once again, he's great at finding these pictures. These are from the Kevin U. Daly collection, which is a huge collection. If you get any of the White River Publications magazines, sometimes these pictures from Kevin U. Daly's own collection, they show up in the magazines. And this one is no different. Here's 1501, the actual prototype picture. And this is in San Francisco, California, about 1974. So really good shape there. It's kind of dusty and dirty, but it's in really good shape. Here's another angle of 1501. This is in May of 1978. This is in the Oakland, California area. For you central guys in the Midwest central area, check out what's behind there. You got some Chicago Northwestern. Pretty cool. And these are the pictures that when you're doing your weathering and stuff like that, these are perfect for that. Here's a picture of 1502, another one that we are offering. This was taken in Oakland, California in July of 1973. And man, it's still kind of shiny there. Not a lot of grime on that. Really cool. So like I said, it's been, I believe, a little bit over 6 years since we've offered these locomotives for you. So this is cool. And the Western Pacific, we actually had a lot of requests for this line. So I'm happy to have this out here for you guys, the fans of the W&P. All right, so we are also offering Wisconsin Central. Now, Wisconsin Central, they picked up these SW1500s in the 90s. And they went on throughout the 2000s. And if you know anything about the Wisconsin Central, these were perfect for a lot of their operations. And once again, we've got some neat pictures to show. Now, before I go any further, we are offering the Wisconsin Central. We're offering that in 3 different road numbers. So we've got 1567, 1568, and 1569. Now, these arrived in this paint scheme in the late 1990s. These were all former Southern Pacific SW switchers, and they came from Indiana Harbor, and then before that it was SP. So they had quite a lineage by the time they got onto the Wisconsin Central property. They were refurbished, they were repainted. Some of them were repainted in the Christmas tree scheme. If you're a Wisconsin Central fan, you know what I'm talking about. We're offering them this late 90s paint scheme. And I think, let me double check and make sure. Let me see. I think he sent me some pictures of these guys in the wild. Okay, there's 1568. Now, one thing I do want to mention to you guys, we are offering them in this paint scheme. We are offering them the SW1500s in this paint scheme. But one thing to note, these pictures, this is when they still had the SP style spark arresters. The versions that we're offering are later, so they do not include that. So if you look at our website and if you look at the artwork, you'll see that those spark arresters are not there. I just wanted to make that clear that these pictures were taken a little bit earlier from what we're offering. Well, this picture here, this is in Neenah, Wisconsin in 1998. Really looks good. So you heard me talking about the Christmas tree scheme earlier. Well, here's an example here, 1555. And the 1561 right behind it. This is a Jim Boyd photo, and this was taken in April of 1998. Here's 1562. This is one that we're not offering, unless I specified. These are just examples of the SW1500 in this paint. This one here was taken a little bit earlier in the 90s. This is 1994 in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. Been there a few times. Nice area. And did a lot of rail fanning there back in the 90s about this time. Nice shot of 1562. This is also in Fond du Lac in 1994. One more from Fond du Lac. So if you're a fan of the short lines, such as the Wisconsin Central, or you want to do something that's in the 90s, you can. There's a lot of guys that make switching layouts, and they want them to be more modern. They want them to be 90s to 2000s. The Wisconsin Central switchers may be perfect for you. So a lot of pictures from Fond du Lac. It was a good day to go rail fanning there. I think this is our last slide. Check out those covered hoppers in the background. Really cool. Now this one here, this was taken in 1997. This is also in Fond du Lac, and according to my description I got here, this was taken in front of the CNW depot. Now, you Southern Pacific fans, you're always wanting us to come out with SP. I get a lot of requests for SP and get a lot of requests for cotton belt. So if you remember, if you had anything to do with the survey that we sent out a couple of months ago, cotton belt was one of the choices that you could make. And cotton belt got a pretty good response, enough so that we wanted to offer it to you on this run too. Now, cotton belt we're offering in 3 different road numbers. We're doing 2481, 2485, and 2487. Now, of course, this has got the Southern Pacific style lighting package with it. You've got the P3 horn, the Flexicoil trucks. It's basically as delivered for an SP. It's just the cotton belt. And these are cool because these are delivered in 68, so these are good for a layout that's set in the 70s. You can go anywhere between 68 to mid 70s. And I've only got one picture of this locomotive. Let's see, that's 2481. Let me see what Tony sent me. 2488. We're actually not doing 2488, but there it is. I mean, looks absolutely stunning. You'd think this is an older picture. Believe it or not, it's October 1988. It must have just gotten freshly serviced because it looks brand new in this picture, and it's a great picture. Yeah, and somebody was asking, do they have smoke? In this situation, no, they don't, and you don't want smoke. Let's see. Somebody said never leave was Terry? Yeah, Terry's right. Never let the magic smoke out. You Can't get that genie back in that bottle. So no, they do not smoke, but they've got some really great sound. And I don't think I mentioned they're actually going to have a dual sugar cube speaker. You know what that does with our larger locomotives? Just makes the sound that much more dynamic. So if you've got a small switching layout, these things are going to sound really nice. So for all my friends out there on the East Coast, I apologize. I could not get any pictures of Conrail. Now, Conrail's another one that we get a lot of requests for. And while I have a lot of Conrail photography, it was mainly in the Western Massachusetts, Central New Hampshire area, and I didn't get anything that was switcher related. So most of my stuff was mainline power. One correction I do want to point out too is actually it's a single cube speaker. There's no room for dual cube, but still that single cube speaker, the technology that we're using now is so much better than it was in the past that the sound's going to be phenomenal. Now, one other thing, remember I was talking about the improved drivetrains? One thing to remember with these is the drivetrain is essentially derived from the Genesis series. Now, if you've got a Genesis locomotive, you know how smooth they are. Well, you're going to have that smooth motor, much quieter motor, and the drive lane itself is going to be smoother, which is exactly what you need with a switcher, especially in slow speed operation. This is exactly what you need. You don't want a herky-jerky locomotive. You want this thing to be nice and smooth, and that's why we went with that. So for Conrail, we're offering that in a few numbers as well. We are offering the Conrail in 3 different road numbers: 9614, 9617, and 9619. Now, what's really cool is these were former Reading locomotives, and they got the can opener paint style in the 70s. These actually joined the Conrail roster in 1976, and so if you're modeling anywhere between 76 through the 80s, these are perfect. A lot of guys, again, asking for 1980s. Well, here you go. These would be perfect for that. And especially if you're somebody that wants to do a switching module that's more of an urban theme, maybe a city type setting, these would be perfect for that. Let's see what else we've got in. We got some Burlington Northern. So Burlington Northern, they had a lot of stuff when they were formed. They had stuff from, of course, the CB&Q and Great Northern, just to name 2 of the major railroads that became Burlington Northern. But they actually did put an order in for switchers through EMD. In fact, with this one here, we're offering this one as well as 3 different road numbers: 310, 317, and 322. This was the only new order of SWs that they got, and this would have taken place in 1973. Now, a lot of their other switchers came from the roads that made up the Burlington Northern, and later on a lot more would come in from Frisco. Frisco actually had some of these. These are not based on the Frisco or the Great Northern or any of these. This was actually from the one order. So with that being said, I want you to keep that in mind. The ones that we're doing are from the actual order that Burlington Northern placed with EMD, and as they appeared on the Burlington Northern property in 1973. Some of the pictures that I want to share with you, though, however, these are not from that order. They are other SW locomotives, but it's cool to get a kind of a sense of feeling where these locomotives ended up, in case you want to model the Burlington Northern. So here we go. This is back 1975. If you're a fan of the Burlington Northern or CB&Q, Harold Zier is somebody that you've probably heard of. Took a lot of pictures of the 2 railroads. And this was taken in March of 1975. And what I really find really cool about this picture is if I zoom in here, check out the Burlington gondola and the Burlington covered hoppers back there. So what's really cool is if you're modeling early Burlington Northern, you have an excuse to run all of those predecessor roads as well. The 1970s was really cool for the Burlington Northern. Within 10 years of the merger, they had all their locomotives painted. but the freight cars, that wasn't as big of a priority. So if you want to model an interesting time, the 1970s is definitely interesting. So moving ahead in time, now we're up to 1982. Remember we talked about the Frisco locomotives? You can see here, number 38, you can probably guess its heritage. This was in Memphis, Tennessee in January of 1982. Now this picture here really well defines what the SWs were great for. Here you've got a branch line. I mean, check out this old, you can barely see it. I'm going to try to zoom in on it so you guys can see it. But check out this old tank car. This is in Kirkwood, Missouri, 1982. Great stuff. I mean, as far as I can tell from this picture, there's only 3 freight cars here. There might be more after there. It's hard to tell. But if you're doing a smaller layout, this is why the SW is such a great locomotive for that. Now, remember me talking about urban city modeling? Here you go. Here's a great example. This is April 1988. And unfortunately, I don't have a location for this one. But check out the old water tower frame on that building. You've got some warehouses there, and you've just got that one lone covered hopper there. That's it. Also in Burlington Northern, 1988. Here's some more. And I mean, this is why a lot of guys like city modeling. And this is perfect for a lot of you guys that want a shelf layout. Here you've got the locomotive running right through the middle of town, right in the street, actual street running. You got one car and a caboose. This is 1992, believe it or not. This is in St. Louis. And then all the way to 1998. We're in BNSF era now. This is all BNSF era, 1998. This is a Jim Boyd picture that he took in May of 1998. You can see these guys are starting to show a little bit of wear on them. The Cascade green isn't quite as shiny as it used to be, but cool picture. So what's this? Well, let's talk about this for real quick. Going back to the survey that we did a couple of months ago, we figured, we hear a lot of you, and a lot of you guys commented here on Train Tuesday, I'd really like an undeck. Are you going to offer undeck? Are you guys ever going to do undeck again? And honestly, we thought, we've tried it in the past, but maybe it's time to offer undeck again. And a lot of you guys, answered the survey, and we got an overwhelming amount of folks out there that want an undecorated locomotive. So that's what we're doing. We're offering this in both the SP version and then just the standard version. So that gives you an opportunity to do a couple of things. Maybe there's a road that we're not offering this time that you really want to have. Maybe you're a guy that wants to model the Frisco and you want one of the Frisco versions. You can do that now. Or maybe you have your own home road. A lot of guys now, they'll do a prototype layout, but they'll have their own home name layout. This gives you an opportunity to be a little bit creative, make up your own paint scheme, make up your own decals, that type of thing. Now, for you guys that are not as aware of how the undecorated thing works, for many, many, many years, manufacturers offered their goods in undecorated as well as decorated. And a lot of folks found a lot of enjoyment in the hobby by doing the research and painting and decaling the locomotives. And the good news is there's a plethora of supplies out there for you. And all you have to do is go to the same place where you do your pre-orders for Athearn, your local dealer. And all of that's available to you. In fact, I'm going to probably end up getting one of these undecorated locomotives because it just so happens my favorite short line has one of these. And I don't think anybody would, I'd throw it out there if anybody wants to guess, but I guarantee you, I don't think anybody out there is going to know which railroad that is. I'll give it a little bit, but I don't want to take up too much time. Actually, what I plan on doing is the New England Southern. And New England Southern has one locomotive, and it just happens to be an SW1500. And since I have a small HO scale switching layout, I figured, you know what, this would be the perfect locomotive for that. So let me show a few things here for you real quick as we end out the SW1500s. And let me give you guys some inspiration. Let's start with the Undecorated. So I've been talking about the New England Southern and how I'd like to paint that up myself. Fortunately for me, that locomotive is based on the Union Pacific paint scheme, so it wouldn't be hard for me to paint it. But what would I do about decals? It's a small short line that, interestingly enough, is now owned by Vermont Rail. Let's see if I can find, here we go. So there's the locomotive. Pretty cool looking locomotive, especially if you like UP. And believe it or not, this is in central New Hampshire. Now, where do you get stuff like this? You can go through Microscale. There's a bunch of different decal companies. This one happens to be Highball Graphics for a lot of you guys in the Midwest and the East Coast. This is a great website. There's all kinds of decals out here for you to use on your Athearn locomotive. If you've never done your own painting with a locomotive, it's a lot of fun. There's a learning curve like anything that we do in model railroading, but it's a lot of fun and it's really rewarding. So, you know, after the show, take a look, open up your web browser and see what's out there. There's a lot of paint companies out there that you can use, as well as decal companies. And of course, as far as documentation can be everything from the internet to books. So basically, if you buy an Undeck, you can do what a lot of our developers do all the time. And definitely something I enjoy. I know that. So that being said, too, I know a lot of you guys out there have been wanting a layout. Maybe you don't have room for that big monster layout that we've been talking about. I wanted to point you real quickly into the direction of a couple of YouTube channels that specifically talk about switching layouts, give you some inspiration. If you've been watching Train Tuesday and thinking, wow, you know, those 6-axle diesels are cool, I just don't have the space for that. I really need a little 4-axle switcher. Well, we've got the switcher. Now I want to give you some inspiration. Let me share my screen once again. And the first YouTube channel that I've come up on is, let's see, go over his channel real quick. And I'm just going to play a little bit of it. This is Boomer Dioramas. He's out of Canada, so if you're into Canadian prototype, this is the channel to watch. He's an absolutely extraordinary modeler, but believe it or not, everything that he shows in his videos you can do, even if you've never done it before. He explains it really well. But this beautiful little layout that we're seeing right now is only 8 feet long. And he's done a remarkable job of having a layout that tells a story. You can operate it, and it's just a great set of videos. So I highly recommend going over to, it's Boomer Dioramas. And he's also working on another switching layout, a little bit bigger than this one. But this kind of gives you an idea of what you can do at just 8 feet. And another one that I want to point you in the direction of, a rather new YouTube channel, I'd say within the last year or so, is Late Night Model Railroading. So let me bring his channel up here real quick. And again, Late Night Model Railroad is the name of his channel. I'll go ahead and play this a little bit. He's working on another switching layout. He's done one in N scale. He's also done one in HO. This is what he's working on now. Great channel. Once again, great craftsmanship. Shows you how you can simply put together a nice little shelf layout, run your switchers. In this case, he's using our GP39-2s that we released about a year ago. And, you know, just take a look at these channels and see what they're doing. they're really doing some great operations. And in both cases, both of these videos that I'm showing you, they're only 8 feet long. They only take up a small portion. So maybe you've got a spare room or an office. You can have just as much fun with these small switching shelf layouts as one that's a big basement empire. And one thing that I like to tell people, coming from somebody that has 2 shelf layouts, there's a lot less track to clean. So definitely check that out. And it really gives you a chance to really explore all aspects of modeling and not get burned out on that big monster layout. So nothing against the monster layouts out there. You guys have got some great stuff. But for some of us that have a constrained budget or maybe a constrained space, the switching shelf style layouts are just perfect. Also too, go out there on Facebook. There's a lot of great Facebook pages out there on shelf layouts and switching layouts, and there's a lot of inspiration to be found. So it's a great time to be in the hobby. It really is. We just didn't have stuff like this 10, 15 years ago. All right, let's get back to ready to roll. And the one last thing I'm going to share with you guys today is we're going to talk about what could almost be considered the modern switcher, and that's the truck. And in this case, the 45-foot trailers. Now, remember last week we were talking about the Genesis F89 flat cars with the trailers. We're offering those trailers separately. Let's see. Let me bring my screen back up so you guys can see what we have available. So, like I was saying last week, the 45-foot trailers, they really started to come into being about the late 1950s. And throughout the 60s and 70s, they were all over the place. They were on the flat cars, they were with the tractors. And again, if you've got a switching layout, you're probably going to have a warehouse of some type. You're probably going to want to pick up some of these cars, or trailers rather. These trailers, pretty much everything that we're showing you today is from the 60s into the 70s, but that doesn't mean you guys from the 80s can't model these. A lot of these lasted right up through the 90s. So a little bit of weathering, you can always use these in the background of your warehouse district. They make great stand-in items for scenery blocks sometimes. So first one we're showing is the Rock Island. This is the new Rock Island image that they adopted in the mid-70s before bankruptcy. And it's one of those schemes, you either love it or you hate it. Depends on, I think, your age. If you're about my age and you remember the Rock Island, this was the scheme that really brought a lot of attention, both negative and positive. But as a kid, I just thought it was a cool paint scheme. Here's another one. You either love it or you hate it. And it depends on your era. If you're a steam guy or you're doing transition, you probably don't like the Penn Central. But if you're somebody that enjoys 1970s modeling, the Penn Central, for what it was, has a lot of history behind it. And even if you're modeling Conrail, these things will be found on the property. So if you're modeling 1970s Conrail, it's conceivable you'd probably have one of these on your layout. 1970s, there's our ACI panel. So that really screams 1970s. Mopac, this one kind of goes into the 80s a little bit. We have a lot of fans out there that are Mopac modelers, and we figured this would be a great one to release again. And then last but not least, 1960s, believe it or not, 1960s, I'm going to say 1968 to mid-1970s, the Relco. So all of these trailers that we're offering them in, let's see, I want to make sure, yep. We're offering them in 2 different road numbers each. So for every Rock Island, there's 2 different trailers that you can get. And that just kind of helps out with a variety on your layout. That doesn't mean that you can't get more. You can always, take care of those numbers and change those numbers depending on how much of a fan you are of any one of those trailers or any one of those lines. So there you have it. Ready to roll this month. We've got some great stuff. And the SW1500, really excited about it. I know I've got a couple on order myself. And you can be sure you're going to see some reviews of that in the future. Now, you've got some time. We're about halfway through the month. It's hard to believe that we're right in the middle of the holiday season. But after a lot of those major holidays, on the 31st, that's the last day you can pre-order one of these items. So remember, Friday the 31st, last day to order. So if you didn't get what you wanted for Christmas or any other holiday, well, here's your chance. You can go to the hobby shop, take care of that problem. All right, I've got one more thing to show you, and then we'll take a few questions, and we will call this show good to go. One last thing that I wanted to show you is James over at Hybrid Hobby. He did a great review for us. In fact, it just went up today. Let me bring that up here for you. Here we go. And again, as always, I mute these. He is reviewing the new Genesis 2.0-9s, and he got the UP version. Now, James does a great job of doing these reviews. He also finds the prototype pictures, usually of the actual unit, which is great. So do yourself a favor. After you see this, go on over to Hybrid Hobbies. Check out their review of the Dash 9. These Dash 9s really caught us by surprise. We are totally out. So if you still want one of these, you're going to have to contact your dealer. We are totally out in our distribution center. If you missed out, that's one of those things. Having a pre-order really does help. I'm glad I pre-ordered my BNSF ones, which will be here probably in late January. But again, Hybrid Hobbies, and thanks, James, for doing that great review. The layout that he uses, it's a club layout. It's an absolutely stunning layout. It looks really, really nice with those reviews. So check that out. We'll also be sharing that across our Facebook social media platform in case you miss out. All right, so that was a full show. And I'm going to be honest with you, I've been playing with the screens back here. I've probably missed some of your comments. So I'm going to kind of go back here and see if you guys have any questions and see if I missed anything. It looks like a few of you guys have got the Rock Island and the Missouri Pacific trailers on pre-order. That's good to hear. Terry says he loves those rock trailers. Yeah, I do too. One of the channels that I was showcasing today is actually here, Late Night Model Railroad. I'm going to put his, he said, small layouts also provide you with a learning experience before you tackle something larger. Yeah, he's absolutely correct. That's a great point. You might be in a situation, you might be younger, and maybe you're in an apartment, maybe you're in a small home. Someday you might have room for that major layout. And it'll be nice to know that when someday you inherit a basement or a garage or some other large portion of a room to make that dream layout, all those things you've already learned, you're ready to go. So good point. And let's see, anything else? I'm kind of going back a little bit. Just in case I missed you guys when I was talking between the screens. Lucas, if you were guessing before I saw you, I'll give it to you. That is one of the ones, and that's pretty much all I have room for in HO is a small version of Canterbury Yard. Glenn's excited about the Undeck. He says, thanks for offering the SW1500 in Undeck. It's going to come in handy for my freelance Dundas and Hamilton Bay. That's cool. You know, the thing that I'm really excited about with these Undecorateds is I really want to see maybe in a year and a half from now, some of you guys submit your pictures of the Undecks that you painted. That's what I really want to see. That's the creative fun of this hobby. Andre, he's really excited about the Undeck as well. Good to hear. All right, let me go to a few more recent comments or questions. Let's see. Terry, I see your comment out there. Have your dealer contact his sales rep, and he should be able to get some updates. also too, we are trying to make some of those updates available online because we do realize the mail is extremely slow, especially this time of year. Dylan, will Jim be at the Amherst show for Athearn? Yeah, I'll be there. Yeah, that's my thing. And that's my home turf too. So if everything goes correctly with shipping and everything, I'm hoping to have some great stuff there that is appropriate for the area. Let's just put it that way. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And hoping to see a lot of you guys that watch this. I'm hoping to see you guys in person. All right, I got time for maybe 1 or 2 more questions, and then we're going to pull the pin. Let's see. Ted, you got a good question there. Do you offer demonstrator locomotives? Now, are you talking about the paint schemes like the EMD demonstrator paint schemes? Yes. In fact, there's probably one in your future real quick. Definitely, you know, on the prototype models and stuff, we'll do the demonstrator paint schemes. MB Rail fan, I see you, and I hear you, okay? As a guy that likes Maine Central and Canadian Pacific stuff too, I hear you on the chop nose Jeep 9s. I feel sad about saying this because the development guys are running like 24/7. You have no idea how busy they are. They are behind locked doors. Once in a while, I sneak a question to Janik or John, but they are so busy making new stuff for you guys. So patience, Padawan. We're working on stuff. Anthony, the Conrail SW1500s. So everything that you saw today is available for pre-order until December 31st. At that point, all those orders are closed. They're sent to the factory, and we expect to see the SW1500s, the Conrails, and all the other ones. We expect to see those in January of 2023. So just about a year and 1 month. Okay. One more. Yes, Kevin, I can't. I'm amazed too. I'm kind of a Trekkie. I'm not sure where the Star Wars thing came from. All right. So looks like everybody is excited about the SW1500s, especially the Undecs. That's great. I hope if you have not ordered your Undeck yet, please be sure to pre-order before the 31st, because you don't want to be that guy that walks into the hobby shop. I don't do this. You can talk to my hobby shop and, you know, verify this, but you don't want to be the guy that walks into the hobby shop, sees your buddy walking out with this cool SW1500 and on deck, thinking, oh man, that's cool. I need that. Yeah, well, they're sold out. So don't be one of those guys. Be one of the guys that pre-orders. That way you're assured you're going to get it. And yeah, I've already lost out on a few. You don't want to be like that. You want to make sure you have your locomotives. All right, so with that, thanks for coming on board today. I want everybody out there, especially this time of year, be safe, be happy, do some modeling, fit some modeling time in if you can. And above all, high greens, everybody. I will see you next Tuesday. Take care.